HOA ordered me to clean my yard, so I dumped all the junk onto their perfect lawn. Have you ever felt the suffocating weight of someone else's rigid aesthetic demands pressing down on your personal space, dictating how you should live, even down to the very contents of your own backyard? I'm Leo Maxwell, and my home, a charming, slightly eccentric bungalow nestled in the meticulously manicured community of Harmony Heights, was my sanctuary. It wasn't just a house. It was a workshop, a quiet haven where I pursued my passion for restoring vintage electronics and antique machinery. My backyard, a sprawling, somewhat cluttered space filled with fascinating old radios, disassembled engines, and various salvage parts, was my pride and joy, a treasure trove for my projects. It was my private domain, a place of meticulous work and quiet focus. Then, Ms. Brenda Sterling arrived. Brenda, the newly elected, self-anointed queen of the Harmony Heights Homeowners Association, saw my passion not as a respectable hobby, but as an unacceptable disruption. She was all sharp angles and sharper pronouncements, a woman whose perfectly coiffed blonde hair and designer activewear screamed unapproachable perfection. Her first official act, it seemed, was to send me a curt, imperious letter demanding the immediate remediation of my backyard. It was, according to her, excessively cluttered, a visual blight, and a clear violation of community aesthetic guidelines. Her ultimate, thinly veiled demand was for me to clear out my workshop, dispose of my junk, and conform to Harmony Heights' elevated standards, effectively stripping my life of its passion and livelihood. Her tone was dripping with condescension, her words a thinly veiled threat against everything I held dear. She looked at my backyard, a testament to creativity and resourcefulness, as if it were a festering wound on the pristine landscape she envisioned. I tried to reason with her, calmly explaining that my projects were contained within my property, generated no noise complaints, and that many of the items were valuable antiques or parts for future restorations. I even offered to build a tall, aesthetically pleasing privacy fence to shield my work from view. Brenda merely waved a dismissive hand, her perfectly manicured nails glinting. "Mr. Maxwell," she purred, her voice a brittle whisper of disdain, "your hobbies are simply not suited for the elevated standards of Harmony Heights. We are building a community of distinction, and frankly, your junkyard detracts from our property values. The bylaws are clear. All outdoor spaces must be uniform and manicured." Her words, delivered with an air of unassailable authority, left no room for debate. She was not interested in facts or community. She was interested in control and conformity. The true nightmare began on a sunny Tuesday morning. I stepped out to my backyard, ready to begin work on a rare vintage phonograph, only to find a scene of utter devastation. My carefully organized piles of salvaged parts were scattered, some broken. My antique radios lay smashed, their delicate tubes shattered. My workbench was overturned, and several priceless, irreplaceable components for a current restoration project were missing. Crude signs, emblazoned with the Harmony Heights HOA logo, were hammered into the ground, declaring the area under HOA remediation non-compliant debris removal. My heart sank, a cold dread seeping into my bones. This wasn't just an annoyance. It was an act of pure, malicious vandalism, a deliberate destruction of my property, and a direct assault on my life's work. As I stared at the wreckage, a glint of white caught my eye near the overturned workbench. It was a small, ornate silver locket, one I recognized from a photo I'd seen of Brenda wearing it at a community event. My blood ran cold. I quickly photographed the scene and then, driven by a gnawing suspicion, I reviewed my backyard security camera footage, a system I'd installed after a few minor incidents of vandalism in the neighborhood. What I saw made my stomach clench with a mixture of horror and outrage. The video, timestamped just after midnight, showed Brenda Sterling herself, dressed in dark clothing, stealthily approaching my backyard. She wasn't just supervising. She was actively participating, wielding a crowbar with a grim, almost gleeful determination, smashing my radios and scattering my parts. At one point, she paused, looked directly at the camera, though clearly unaware of its presence, and muttered, "That'll teach him to defy the HOA. This property will finally look presentable." And then, a chilling detail. The camera also captured a brief, whispered phone conversation Brenda had just before entering my yard. She was speaking to a man I recognized as Mr. Davies, the CEO of Pristine Properties Management, a company known for its aggressive tactics in acquiring and redeveloping properties. They were discussing the final phase of their plan to acquire a large section of Harmony Heights, including my property, claiming it was underutilized and non-compliant. Brenda's plan was to force me out, allowing Pristine Properties to buy my land at a reduced price, and then redevelop the entire block into a new, exclusive community green space and sculpture park, where she, as a silent partner in Pristine Properties, would control all the installations and profit handsomely. This wasn't just about my yard. It was a calculated, high-stakes conspiracy, threatening not only my home but the entire character of our community and its public spaces. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, the security camera footage of her trespass, sabotage, and fraudulent claims, and my detailed knowledge of Pristine Properties' recent land acquisitions, I immediately called the local police, bypassing the usual channels and going straight to the non-emergency line. While waiting for the police, I resolved to confront Brenda publicly. I learned she had called an emergency HOA meeting, ostensibly to present a new community initiative, the Harmony Heights exclusive green space and sculpture park, and to address the ongoing issue with Mr. Maxwell's non-compliant and unsightly property. I arrived, my evidence ready, just as Brenda, radiating an almost unbearable smugness, began her presentation, complete with glossy renderings of the new park sprawling across what she claimed was underutilized HOA land. I waited for a lull, then stood up, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Brenda," I stated, holding up my tablet with the security camera video paused on her mid-sabotage face. "I believe this footage and your recent actions sheds a rather inconvenient light on your green space and sculpture park initiative." Her eyes, which had been sparkling with self-satisfaction, immediately narrowed. She quickly recovered, her voice sharp. "Mr. Maxwell, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a private HOA matter. You are disrupting our proceedings, and your dramatics are quite unnecessary." She attempted to rally the other HOA members, painting me as a disgruntled, obsessive hoarder, a nuisance to their refined community. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely the kind of element we are trying to remove from our beautiful Harmony Heights. But just as she was about to call for me to be removed, a quiet, unassuming man named Dr. Anya Sharma, a renowned urban planner and community advocate who lived in Harmony Heights and had been quietly researching Pristine Properties land dealings, rose from his seat. "Actually, Ms. Sterling," Dr. Sharma interjected, her voice calm but authoritative, "Mr. Maxwell raises a very serious point. And I also have something to add." She then projected a series of public land records onto the screen. Clear, undeniable images showing the common green space as a designated public easement and a critical historical landmark. "This proposed green space and sculpture park," Dr. Sharma continued, her voice gaining strength, "is a direct violation of county zoning laws and historical preservation acts. It threatens to destroy a vital public space and would illegally privatize public land." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Before Brenda could even stammer a denial, the doors to the community hall swung open. Two stern-faced police officers, accompanied by a representative from the district attorney's office, walked in. They had been tipped off by Dr. Sharma, who had contacted them after seeing the suspicious activity around my property and confirming my initial suspicions. "Brenda Sterling," the district attorney's representative announced, his voice devoid of emotion, "you are under arrest for criminal trespass, vandalism, attempted fraud, and conspiracy to commit land appropriation. We have irrefutable video evidence and a full investigation into Pristine Properties Management and your alleged land deals is underway." Brenda's face, which had been a mask of carefully constructed composure, crumbled into a terrified, pale mess. Her jaw went slack, her eyes darting wildly around the room, searching for an escape that wasn't there. She stammered, then erupted into a desperate, high-pitched shriek, blaming misunderstandings, overzealous contractors, and a misunderstanding of the land deeds. It was the pathetic wail of a tyrant whose kingdom had suddenly collapsed. Then, a surprising voice emerged from the crowd. Mr. Peterson, a long-standing, quiet member of the HOA board and a respected local real estate developer, stood up, his face etched with regret. "And Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Perhaps you'd also like to explain why you pushed so hard for this green space and sculpture park project, not for the community's benefit, but because Pristine Properties Management, the company you're so eager to partner with, is secretly owned by your estranged sister, and you intended to use this deal to secure a massive personal commission and a controlling interest in her future projects, all under the guise of community enhancement?" The revelation hung in the air, a final, poisoned arrow. Brenda had been exploiting the HOA not for the community's benefit, but for her own illicit financial gain and to secure her sister's failing business. The fallout was swift and brutal. Brenda was immediately stripped of her HOA presidency, her reign ending in public humiliation and a perp walk captured by local news. The police and district attorney's office launched a full-scale investigation, leading to severe fines and criminal charges for trespass, vandalism, environmental violations, and attempted land appropriation. Pristine Properties Management, facing legal repercussions and public outrage, immediately lost their lucrative contracts and faced a barrage of investigations, leaving Brenda utterly isolated and financially ruined. She lost her position, her reputation, her social standing, and faced a future of crushing debt and legal battles. Her karma was a public, humiliating spectacle, a direct consequence of her petty tyranny and audacious fraud. I felt a profound sense of vindication, a quiet triumph that justice, however painfully achieved, had prevailed. My backyard was a mess, but it was my mess, and it would be restored. The community, shaken but united, began the process of rebuilding trust and respecting the delicate balance of property rights and the environment. And as a final act of defiance, when the HOA, now under new, more sensible leadership, offered to clean up my yard, I politely declined. Instead, I meticulously gathered every single piece of broken junk, every shattered radio, every mangled part, and, with the help of a rented dumpster, I systematically dumped it all, piece by piece, onto the pristine, manicured common lawn directly in front of Brenda Sterling's house. It was a silent, unmistakable message, a sprawling, unsightly monument to her folly, a constant reminder of the price of her arrogance. In a world where bureaucratic power can become a weapon, and individual ego can lead to audacious exploitation and criminal acts, where do we draw the line between upholding rules and protecting personal property and the environment? When faced with such blatant disregard for rights, safety, and the well-being of others, what would you have done?